Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, here with my NYRA Bets colleague, Kaylie Shapiro, and we are here to give you an early preview of the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby and Grade 1 Cotillion. And Kaylie, it's going to be quite a Saturday down at Parx for those two races, and you and I are going to be down there on site covering the races for NYRA Bets. A lot of great content. Make sure to follow and subscribe, but it's going to be a really fun Saturday.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. I've never been to Parx before, so I'm really excited to go there for the first time for the Pennsylvania Derby with the field that we have for that, and also the Cotillion with Torpedo Anna running. Like, that's going to be a really, really exciting day.
Oh, it is. It's going to be a great day from start to finish, and some great other horses and other races too. You got a horse like Next in the Greenwood Cup, Super Chow in the Park Sprint. So a lot of great stuff. Listen, before we get into this early reaction preview of the PA Derby and Cotillion, make sure to press that like button here on YouTube and subscribe to the NYRA Bets YouTube channel to get all of our race previews, full card analyses, as well as handicapping, betting tutorials, and so much more. But let's dive into that Grade 1 Cotillion and talk about this race. Field of 8, going a mile and 16th on the dirt for 3-year-old fillies. And your favorite in this race is the number 6, Torpedo Anna, at 4-5. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that she's your single in this race.
Absolutely. Okay. I think that she should be everyone's single here. I'm very surprised at the 4-5 price on the morning line. I think that come post time, she'll be something close to 1-5 or 2-5.
Yeah.
Not probably 1-5. So I think that, when you're looking at this race, you're kind of looking for who to use underneath her for some value. So
yeah, no, that's a great point. And listen, she is coming in from a just absolutely amazing summer after just dominating the 3-year-old fillies. Mm-hmm. We saw her last up at Saratoga, going up against the boys in the Travers and running just a huge second to Fierceness that day, 111 by her speed figure. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the crazy part is we've seen some video come out from Ken McPeak over the last couple of days of her working out and getting trained up for this. You think she actually looks better now than she did before the Travers?
Yes, and obviously she looked amazing going into the Travers. Her energy is always great. Mm-hmm. No matter what big effort that horse runs after, it looks like she could run another race. So, but I did think it looked like she put some healthy weight on. I don't know if it was just the video, but she looks really muscled up and looks like she put some weight on. So I'm excited to see her in person and see if that's actually the case. But based on the videos, honestly, she looks even better to me. So
yeah, and that's something to keep in mind, that obviously horses can bounce off of big efforts, but one of the things you do like to see is, how does a horse come back in terms of their weight? How do they come back in terms of how are they working out? And she certainly seems to check both of those boxes. And again, being able to do what she did against Fierceness last time was just so impressive.
Right. No other horse has ever run up on Fierceness like that when he's had things his own way. Obviously, Sierra Leone has a couple of times, but the way that she ran, she came so close. And, she proved more in defeat in that race than if she won easily and other horses didn't have it their way. I think it's so impressive that she was able to come that close to Fierceness. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you look, when Fierceness runs his A game and when the real Fierceness, to quote track announcer Pete Aiello down at Gulfstream Park, when he shows up, he usually wins easy. And the fact that she pressed him and got as close to him as she did really does speak to just her overall quality. Earned a 111 by her speed figure. But listen, even if you toss that speed figure out, she still is your obvious single here after winning the Oaks, after winning the Acorn, and just after winning the Coaching Club America Oaks. But want to give some love to another Grade 1 winner in this field, which is the number 1 Power Squeeze at 4-1, coming off that win in the Alabama. Likes to come from off the pace, though. It might be a little trip compromise in that regard.
100%. I think that her running style might put her into some difficulty here. Mm-hmm. So, and honestly, a lot of her wins have been photo finishes. I'm not taking anything away from her. Obviously, she's a really nice filly, but it is kind of concerning when you look at the Alabama and how she kind of really looked like she should have pulled away from Candy there. Yeah. She kind of just stayed next to her comfortably and happened to get her nose down. It was really, really close, like a lot of her races. So, and especially at 4-1, I don't know if that's the horse I'm going to be looking for some value underneath. So
yeah, I think that's a fair point, that she has a very minimal margin for error. And to that regard, she's a little bit like Sierra Leone, where it's like, listen, you got to get the exact right trip, the exact right setup, and the pace scenario's got to be exactly right. And Yeah, when we rewatched that Alabama before we started recording this, that was something that really did stand out, which was with about 100 yards to go, she kind of drew even with Candy, and you thought, okay, here she goes by,
Mhm.
and she just kind of didn't.
Right.
And, she got the lucky and got the nose down and got the bob, but should have won a little bit more than probably she did that day. Now, obviously, going up against Torpedo Anna, going to be a bit tall task, but I know you're a big fan of the number 3 Tarifa at 5-1,
Mhm.
a horse second back from a layoff from the Kentucky Oaks, but this one has some nice races to go back to as an early 3-year-old.
Absolutely. She's very consistent if you toss out her effort in the Oaks, and she's coming in here really fresh. So I really like her, especially 5-1 on the morning line for a horse to use underneath, seeing, what the prices are come post
Yeah.
time. But yeah, she's definitely a horse I wouldn't be leaving out of my superfectas, even exactas, depending on how you want to play it. But
Yeah, no, she is. She's coming off a second last time out, and that was the first race that she had in 3 months. So she's second back from that layoff. And
mhm.
usually you're going to see a horse fire their best effort in those instances. And that last race, the Audubon Oaks at Ellis Park, they were going really fast up front. And she was part of that early pace scenario. And the horse Fibber, who ended up winning, just kind of got the better trip, I thought. And you figure second back for Brad Cox, Florent Giroux, she's going to show her best effort. And yeah, 5-1, I think if that goes up at all, potentially, that would be a really interesting horse to consider. Now, a horse that maybe you use in those trifectas, superfectas, deeper wagers is another horse you're a fan of, number 7 Gunsong, 10-1. An honest, a hard trying horse, and maybe not a grade 1 horse, but always tries hard.
Right. And she's, the Black Eyed Susan winner.
Right.
She's a really, really nice filly. And honestly, I'm definitely going to be using her. I think 10-1 on the morning line is a pretty generous price when you look at her compared to maybe Citamara or some of the other horses in here. I would lean more towards Gunsong at that price for sure.
Yeah, and she is an interesting one where a lot of times it's about the trip she gets. And when she doesn't get the forward trip, she doesn't need to lead, but if she doesn't get a forward trip, it's just not going to work out for her. And if she gets a little bit of a better trip today, I think that she's got a real shot to certainly hit the board, like you said, and enrich those superfectas, trifectas potentially. A horse that I'll mention that was kind of interesting to me is the horse that actually beat her last time out, which is Scalable, 10-1. And this is a horse that I'm interested in because of how she closed. So, like Power Squeeze, she's a closer, but at Monmouth Oaks, she really was able to close with pretty moderate fractions. They were going 50 to the half, 113 to the 6 furlong mark, and she still was able to close going wide under Paco Lopez that day. Listen, she's going to run up against the same issues as Power Squeeze. She's just 2.5 times the price.
Right.
So in deeper verticals, I'd actually like using her more than I would like using Power Squeeze. So that's one I'd look to. And then Citamara, a horse that we saw lose that photo to Power Squeeze, two back in the Delaware Oaks. That's another one. You mentioned how Power Squeeze kind of didn't quite go by and got a little comfortable. Citamara kind of did the same thing in that Delaware Park Oaks. So again, not an obvious horse to really contend with Torpedo Anna, but underneath, maybe.
Absolutely. There's a lot of interesting ways that you can go about this with horses to use underneath. So it should be a really exciting race.
Yeah, absolutely should be. Well, let's go to the headliner, which is the Pennsylvania Derby, grade 1 for 1.125 for those 3-year-olds on the dirt. And it's an 11-horse field. Your morning line favorite is the number 7 Dragoon Guard for trainer Brad Cox, Florent Giroux aboard, 9-5 on the morning line. Kaylie, what was your initial reaction when you saw this field of 11 and the morning line prices?
Well, when you're looking at Dragoon Guard, the morning line favorite, obviously he's done nothing but win. He's a really nice horse, great connections, but he hasn't really faced the caliber of horses that Seize the Gray and Unmatched Wisdom have faced. Probably the toughest horse that he's faced could be Stronghold here. And I don't really like the post position Stronghold drew. And my other reaction was that I'm really shocked by Unmatched Wisdom being 8-1 on the morning line. If it's anywhere near that come post time, that's my pick all day. So
yeah, no, there's 2 horses that you back the Brinks truck up for. If Torpedo Anna's 4-5 and if Unmatched Wisdom's 8-1, I'm not telling you to take out a second mortgage, but listen, those are really good bets at that morning line price if you can get them. I don't think you're going to get them in either instance, but those were certainly where the value is. And yeah, it's interesting. Dragoon Guard, coming off a win in the Grade 3 West Virginia Derby, the
Mhm.
Grade 3 Indiana Derby before that. And you're right, beat Stronghold before, but, otherwise beat horses like Dymatic and Society Man. And, these are perfectly fine horses. But yeah, you're right, has not necessarily faced the level that a horse like Seize the Gray or others have faced. And the horse that came up when you and I were talking about this before we started recording, Arthur's Ride.
Mhm.
Dragoon Guard's a front-running horse. He's also gray, so a little bit of a similarity there. But it's hard to think that he's going to get things his own way up front the way that he has previously.
Right. There's a lot of speed in this race, really. When you look at it, you have Seize the Gray. That horse has never been pressured by a horse like Seize the Gray up front. So I think that that's going to make a big difference for him in this race. And a horse like Just Step On It, Stronghold, Unmatched Wisdom, they're all going to go. So I think that that's going to make it more difficult for him.
It is. And so he's a little bit of a play against for me. As talented as he is, as well as he's looked in those last 2 victories at 9-5, that's still a short price. I mean, he doesn't feel quite as good as a horse like Saudi Crown last year, who was another one for Brad Cox, who was able to win that race last year. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Seize the Gray. I mean, we got to talk about the Preakness winner, right? 5-1 on the morning line, number 2 post. He's going to go presumably. And he's kind of an interesting horse in this race.
He is. I think that he's a horse that's definitely going to hit the board, no matter how you look at it. I think, obviously against this field, he has a lot of class going into this, and he's a classic winner. And, I don't think that he's going to win unless, we get a monsoon or something.
We did.
But I think, honestly, he might be really forward, and then he's probably going to fade a little bit, but I think he'll still hit the board. So
no, I think so. And it's interesting, obviously we had those pop-up showers on Preakness Day, and then he wins over the sloppy sealed track that day. And certainly, we are going to have a little bit of rain Friday, maybe a touch of rain Saturday. It's not going to be anywhere like last year, if you remember, with the Pennsylvania Derby, which is an absolute monsoon. It's not going to be like that. So I'm not expecting a sealed track, probably just a good track, maybe with a little bit of moisture. But we'll obviously have to wait and see later in the week as that forecast starts to get tightened up. But yeah, a horse that also is coming off a little bit of a layoff, actually. Dwayne Lucas ran Seize the Gray 5 times in 9 weeks at one point this year. Now it's coming off almost a 2-month rest, so should be fresh.
Right, of course.
And so that's, I think, an interesting one. And Just Step On It. You mentioned a horse that's probably going to be forward as well. And you kind of alluded to this. It's too bad because I really like Stronghold. He's a good horse, but man, that 11 post, that's tough. Right. I mean, 5-2 in the morning line. I get it. He is probably the legitimate second choice in this race, but that's a tough spot for jockey Antonio Fresu because there is that speed you mentioned. Stronghold's not the type that likes to kind of gun it to the front. He likes to kind of track. It's just how wide are you going to be caught potentially out of that spot? So that just feels like a tough spot for that horse.
Right. And I really think that there's so many reasons to love Unmatched Wisdom in here. Obviously the morning line price, but also because if, you have horses like Dragoon Guard and Seize the Gray, maybe, Unmatched Wisdom can sit third and make a run up, kind of sit off the pace. And honestly, he's a horse that I've always had the feeling that he has a big race with his name on it. And honestly, he's the horse that scared me the most when we were in the paddock for the Travers. He's just a classy horse. Of course, Chad Brown is bringing him here after his effort in the Travers, and that says a lot. That's very intentional. Clearly, he's bringing him, against a field that is a little bit weaker than what he's faced in the past, a lot weaker than the Travers. So I think that that's definitely my pick here. So
no, there's no Sierra Leone, there's no Fierceness, there's no Dornoch. It's a much weaker field than what he's faced in the past. And I think it's telling that Chad is bringing him back here, not just because it's maybe a little bit of a weaker grade 1. It's one of those things that when you have a horse like Unmatched Wisdom, who's lightly raced, only 4 career starts, steps up into a grade 1, loses. Trainers have a couple of options. Do you drop the horse back down into grade 2, grade 3s? Go, well, we took our shot, not quite there. No, we come right back at a grade 1 because he just got a terrible trip last time. It just was sitting behind horses. He didn't like the kickback. I'm not even sure if he really liked the running surface that day as well. Never looked comfortable in stride. And to your point, if he can sit third and be kind of in the clear in that 2 path, that's perfect. I mean, he can rate. He's shown he can rate before. He doesn't need to have the lead. So he looks very dangerous in this spot. And the fact Chad's bringing him back here certainly speaks to that confidence. Uncle Heavy, I got to give a shout out to all my Pennsylvania friends. listen, Butch Reed, the connections, the trainer, again, a horse that just kind of feels unlucky with that post, a deep closer who's probably going to get caught wide, just going to have a difficult trip to kind of work out from that post position. But should be a really great race. Can't wait for it. Should be a great weekend of racing as well. Kaylie, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about these pair of Grade 1 races.
Thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to the day.
Yeah,
having
absolutely.
a Derby day and going to Parx. So
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And listen, if you see Kaylie and I out at the track, come on up, say hi. We'd love to chat with you and say hi and maybe get a picture, get a selfie, or just, chat with you about who you like in some of the different races. So listen, for Kaylie Shapiro, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.